Hi guys, my name is Kingdom Orjiewuru. This is my first time in the US. I came in on Sunday and I'm pretty excited to be here. So, I don't know if you guys have heard about Dandela, but I work with Dandela and one of their partners, Common Bond, here in New York. So, I came to visit Common Bond and I decided to use this opportunity to hang out in the meetup and make new friends and stuff. So I want to talk on components as data. There is this quote in, I put it from the React theory. It says the core premise of React is that the UIs are like simply projection of data into a different form of data. So in this 10 minutes talk, I will help us to think about these components. Components, when I mean components, I'm talking about input elements exactly. So we'll be looking at how to think about these input elements as data. That will help us to build more dynamic React form components. So I wouldn't be talking a lot about those theoretical concepts, but I'll just focus on form inputs. I think I have that duplicate. All right, so we're looking at simple data model for a group of form inputs that can make them dynamic. We'll be looking at managing the state of those inputs and then validating the inputs. So let me paint this scenario. Let's say you have a form. Ideally, you just write input elements and say you want 2, 3. You write them like static input elements there, and if you need more, you add more to it, right? Now, assuming that you need to get more information for a particular input. For example, say educational information. I want someone to register all the schools he's attended to. For example, before I finished my secondary school, I attended 13 schools. So if you want to get that kind of information, how would you do it? I had to work on a project and that was what inspired this talk. All right, so the data model is an array. We all know that array allows us to do some kind of manipulation, like adding things and removing things and editing the contents, right? So I thought about using an array, and the array will contain objects. So the object is going to be like the representation of the form inputs, something like this. So in this state, you have education as an object, and the object contains the form inputs I need, which is the name, the start, and the end date. And this is the representation in the UI. So we all know that in React, you could just map through elements and they get rendered, right? So having this array rather, that contains just one object, when we map through it in React, we have this. So now, how do you manage this state? Because when you have this dynamically, you can't have the ability to go write custom validation for it. So now, how do you manage this state? I mentioned before that we are using arrays, so arrays has some methods that you can easily use to manage this thing. So we have like concat, we have filter for adding and removing things from it. So let's look at adding an item. So for example, as we have the state, that's an array containing one object. If we need to add more inputs dynamically, we just send in a new object similar to the other one. So since it's an array, and React automatically updates the view once the state is updated. So when you do this operation, it automatically renders, and then you now have two components. So instead of having to write it statically, two static inputs, you just have to do this with concat. All right, now another thing is when you want to handle changes. So being that this is now an array of objects in it, say you have like 3, I feel like 3 schools, and I need to update the first or the second one out of the whole input elements. We here use the filter. So you filter through the whole array, each of the objects, and then you check for the current index that the user is on. So let's say I have like 3 and I'm on the second one. So the index will be 1, and then I filter with that and make the update to the state. Now finally, for removing items, it's pretty simple, still filter. So whenever you call remove, you just send an index and you remove based on that index. So let me show you guys quickly a simple Fiddle. So this Fiddle have the validation and everything done. And this is the array. This is the array. So initially when the component renders, it's just one object, so it renders once. And when I decide to add more items, say, okay, now the state will be updated, the new object is added, and React automatically renders this. So, back to the slide. So for the validation, being that the objects are in an array, I had to like map through the whole array and then create another object. The object will contain true or false values for each of the fields. So say we have 10 fields, each of the fields will have like a representation in the object saying whether they are valid or they are not valid. And their valid state depends on what you want. Say you want the length of the characters to be like 5, or you want the characters to the field to contain just numbers. So you define that in the validation, and that is it. So for the code, you can find the code on GitHub gist, bit.ly/dynamic form gist. The validation and the form component is there. And this was actually inspired by a guy named Gosha. I haven't met him before, but I read one of his articles online, and I like the way he thought about the form components. So, thank you guys.